Why hasn't Earth surrendered yet?
Because we're not deciding whether to fight, we're deciding how.
The Vorcai fleet hung above Earth like a funeral wreath. 47 warships, each one 3 kilometers long, each one carrying weapons capable of reducing a continent to glass in under 4 minutes. Supreme General Veth'Kara stood at the observation deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the blue-green world rotate beneath him with the patient indifference of a man watching an insect drown. He had done this 17 times before. 17 civilizations. 17 worlds reduced to resource colonies. Not one had ever lasted longer than a single planetary rotation after first contact. The formula was simple, elegant, and absolute. Arrive without warning. Disable their communication networks. Transmit the terms of surrender, and watch the species fracture along its own fault lines of fear and desperation. Humans, according to Vorcai intelligence, were particularly vulnerable. They were tribal, fractured by ideology, nationality, and history. Their military forces were spread across dozens of competing nations. Their most powerful weapons were primitive nuclear devices that couldn't even breach Vorcai shielding. Intelligence Commander Clara entered the deck quietly. General, Phase 1 is complete. Their satellite networks are dark. Ground communications are degraded by 63%. Veth'Kara didn't turn around. And their response? Clara hesitated exactly 1 second too long. They haven't responded, she said. No emergency broadcasts. No missile launches. No visible military mobilization. A pause. General, they went quiet the moment we entered the system. 4 days ago, Veth'Kara finally turned. Quiet. Completely. He looked back at the planet. Oceans. Clouds. The slow, indifferent spin of a world that didn't seem to know it was already conquered. He had seen panic. He had seen desperate bravado. He had never seen silence. They're afraid, he said finally, convincing no one in the room, least of all himself. For kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Yuna Vasquez didn't look afraid. She looked like a woman who had been waiting. The command center around her was carved from raw granite, lit by cold blue light, humming with servers that had been running for 3 years on fully isolated power grids. No satellite uplinks, no external signals, no digital footprint that could be touched by anything above the atmosphere. The humans hadn't gone quiet because they were afraid. They had gone quiet because they were ready. Oracle is at 100%, said the technician to her left. His voice didn't shake. None of them shook. These were people who had been briefed, trained, and psychologically prepared for exactly this moment since a program quietly codenamed Patient Threshold had begun in 2031. Yuna pressed 2 fingers against the cold metal table and studied the holographic display above it. 47 ships. Full formation. Weapons hot, but not deployed. They were waiting for surrender, terms to be accepted. They were expecting paperwork. How long have they been scanning for our response channels? She asked. Continuously. They're confused, Admiral. Our silence is breaking their pattern. The technician almost smiled. They've never seen a species that didn't immediately start screaming. Yuna nodded slowly. On the display, one of the Vorcai ships began repositioning, moving toward the northern hemisphere, closer to what their intelligence would identify as population centers. They were about to escalate. She had expected that too. They're going to fire a demonstration round, she said. Uninhabited region. Show of force. They'll expect panic broadcasts within minutes. She straightened. Let them fire. The room went very still. Admiral, let them fire. Her voice was calm bedrock. The moment they do, every government on Earth stops being a separate nation. She looked around the room at the faces of people who had given 3 years of their lives to this moment. The moment they pull that trigger, they don't have 47 targets anymore. She let the silence land. They have one. The demonstration strike hit the Sahara. It was by Vorcai standards a warning shot, a small weapon, the kind they used on pre-industrial civilizations to inspire appropriate religious terror. The crater it created was 40 kilometers wide. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, General Veth'Kara waited for the screaming to begin. It never came. What came instead was a single, clean transmission. No video, no voice, just text, translated perfectly into the Vorcai primary dialect by someone who had clearly been studying their language for a very long time. You have our attention. You have 30 seconds. Veth'Kara read the message 3 times. Something cold moved through him that had no name in his language. Lock onto their major cities, he ordered. All 47 ships. Simultaneous targeting. We end this now. Every system on the Eternal Dominion went dark. Not disrupted. Not degraded. Off. As if someone had simply reached into the ship and removed the concept of electricity from it. Emergency lighting flickered on, battery-powered, primitive, useless. Through the suddenly dead viewport screens, Veth'Kara moved to the physical observation glass and looked out. Every ship in his fleet was dark. 47 warships, drifting powerless above a blue-green world, as silent now as the planet had been for 4 days. The transmission came through on a single emergency frequency, the one channel they'd left open because the humans had known they would need it. Admiral Yuna Vasquez's voice was perfectly calm. General, 3 years ago, we captured one of your scout drones. We didn't destroy it. We took it apart. Then we took it apart again. Then we taught it to our graduate students. A pause that lasted exactly long enough to hurt. Your ships run on a quantum lattice power architecture. It's elegant. We genuinely admire it. We also know that a sustained electromagnetic pulse delivered at a specific resonance frequency, one that your shielding was never designed to filter because no one had ever discovered it before us, collapses the entire network simultaneously. The silence from the Vorcai fleet was total. You came here because you believed we were divided. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. You were right. We were divided. Right up until the moment you fired. The Vorcai ships were towed into stable orbit by vessels that had no right to exist. Human-built, human-crewed, assembled in dry dock facilities buried under 3 oceans, while every visible military installation had played the role of distraction. Veth'Kara was brought aboard a human ship. It was not what he expected. No triumphant corridor of jeering soldiers. No display of trophies or conquered banners. Just a plain metal room with a table, 2 chairs, and Admiral Vasquez sitting across from him with a cup of coffee, going cold at her elbow. She looked tired, not defeated, tired, the way a person looks when they have been carrying something very heavy for a very long time and have finally been allowed to set it down. Your fleet will be released in 72 hours, she said. Unarmed. We've removed the weapon systems. You can have his ships back. Veth'Kara stared at her. You're letting us leave? Yes. Why? She picked up the coffee, looked at it, sat back down. Because we're not conquerors. We don't want your worlds. We don't want your resources. She met his eyes with the kind of steadiness that had no performance in it. We want you to go home. We want you to tell every civilization you've ever threatened exactly what happened here. We want the word to travel. He understood then. The silence hadn't been fear. The silence had been a message being prepared, not for him, but for everyone watching. Yuna stood. The meeting was over. We were the species that wasn't supposed to fight back, she said, moving toward the door. Remember that. Remember it perfectly. She paused at the threshold, and her final words carried the weight of every scar humanity had ever earned from itself and survived. We have been at war with something our entire existence. You were never going to be the thing that broke us.